Hello, Pax for Easy Allies. My name is Brandon Jones. I'm one of the co-founders, producers at Easy Allies.
I'm Ian Hink. I'm one of the co-founders and producers at Easy Allies.
Yeah.
I'm Kyle Bossman. I'm one of the co-founders and producers of Easy Allies.
First of all, thank you so much for showing up. It just occurred to me, I'm just thinking about all of you showing up here in the panel that we're about to do, and like, it's about us. Like, we're gonna spend the next 50 minutes just talking about stuff that we've done, mistakes that we've made through the first year and a half of operating Easy Allies. So there's no like, we're not talking about the Nintendo 64, there's not like a big like BioWare contingency of this panel, and you're here. Like, you showed up just to hear us talking about us and to support us and to hang out. So we really, really appreciate that, and thank you also. A round of applause for yourselves. So yeah, so we are Easy Allies. I think the odds are probably small that there are people in the room that are not watching our videos or following us, but in case there are, thank you especially for showing up. We are a Patreon, a YouTube, and a Twitch channel. We started a year and a half ago in March of 2016. And we have done a lot of really fun things, a lot of things we're very proud of in the last year and a half. Plenty that we are not, and that's what this panel is going to be about. Is
mistakes.
Hopefully it'll work two ways. One, if you're interested in starting a Kickstarter or even just a YouTube channel or a Patreon, even if that's something, if you're in school, something you aspire to do later on in life, hopefully you can glean one of these examples from us and be like, cool, I will never do that, or I will take that to heart. Or if, on the other side, if you're just interested in Easy Allies, if you're like, yeah, I've been watching you guys for the last year and a half. It seems flawless, but surely you must have made some mistakes. Maybe there might be some fun nuggets here that you didn't know.
I don't think it seems flawless.
No.
Yeah.
That was the voice. That was the intonation that I put on that one there.
Right there, see, that's...
And we gotta drop the G word. We used to be Game Trailers, if anyone's like, oh, right, you know. We used to be GameTrailers.com. It's a site I founded in 2002 that these fine gentlemen worked at that ran for about 14 years and then unceremoniously ended in February of 2016. Then we came back strong, thanks to most likely many of you. So thank you for that. But specifically, we're gonna be talking today about these three things. About crowdfunding, what to do with the big crazy community, and how to handle production. No matter what you do, obviously we stream and we make YouTube videos, so like a lot of the advice and lessons that we've learned are pertaining to that, but there are lots of fine people that have Patreons where they make art or they do lots of stuff that does not involve video production, so hopefully some of that translates to some of these other things. But first step, crowdfunding. The most important thing I think at the beginning, and something that was definitely an asset for us, was to create a successful mission statement and to basically make it clear to your audience who you are, what you're about, and what you're going to be doing, kind of like the mission of your Patreon. I think if a Patreon seems to not have a mission, then it can drag, or you don't really get a sense of like, okay, I'm going to support these guys as a favor to them, and not necessarily because I believe in their ideals or I believe in what they're doing. I mean, it's always a favor, but... Right, yeah. So Kyle, what is our mission statement?
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Jones, our motto is love and respect. That's our motto. I don't believe it's our mission statement. And I think our mission statement is just to keep doing what we're doing in a fun manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we got to do our own thing, and like, let's take this opportunity to do what we want. And I feel like that's our mission statement. I feel like it is tied to love and respect, absolutely. But yeah, I think we gathered around, we got in your garage, and we said, let's just do what we want, and let's find a way to keep doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like 1 a.m. when you're like the bar's closing down and there's just that one guy who's like, hey, I know this pizza place. Like, that was kind of that. Where like we all left the bar to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because we were all having a good time at the bar.
Pizza place.
We were at a party and it was like, there's got to be another party tonight.
Except we were kicked out of the bar.
Right, that, yeah.
And then went to the pizza place.
And I mean, two things we want to come out and just be, you know, very obvious about was, one, we definitely follow the Kind of Funny model. Like, we are indebted to them for stepping forward.
I think a bunch of people tweeted, do the Kind of Funny thing.
Yeah, well, and talked in chat. Like, our chat was running for about a month and a half until we started back up on twitch.tv/GameTrailers. And so, anytime I would just tune in, I'd be like, wait for it, and they're just like, they should start a Patreon. Like, okay. So yeah, it was obvious. It wasn't like a light bulb that we had. It was just the question of, were we going to actually be together, and if everybody was going to be down. And shout out to Matt Blair, who moved on to greener pastures. Yeah. Also, there are, see if I can do this from memory, I wrote it down. There are 6 of us that are not here, in case you don't know. Ben Moore, Michael Huber, Michael Damiani, Brad Ellis, Daniel Bloodworth, and Don Casanova.
Yeah.
And it's not in that order that I wrote down, so I'm happy about that.
I'm proud of you.
But
you were worried you couldn't remember their names?
I always forget one. You know what I mean?
Which one?
Oh my God. It's always different every time.
That's true.
It's like the dwarves, you know? You're like, go with Sleepy, that's right.
Yeah, last night when we were practicing it at the Don was last, because you always have to, but we all at the same time were just like, Don Casanova.
Yeah, the Shadow Man. And the other thing too is that we were very, we make it sound like, oh, poor us, you know, we were GT and GT got shut down. We were very fortunate to have that momentum, to have that, that suggestion from the community, and like, we do not want to shy away from that. We don't want to think that like, oh no, we totally grassrooted this thing. Like,
right,
we very much had an established audience and extremely
That's an
grateful
important thing to be upfront about too, is like, because people ask us sometimes for like advice on starting a Kickstarter and all, or a Patreon and stuff, and it's just like, how do we do what you did? And it's like, well, you have a business for 13 years and then you get fired and start a Patreon. Like, it's not exactly, you know, a one-to-one.
But again, which is why we want to focus on our failures, because our successes are, you know,
learn from our mistakes.
Sometimes not easy to replicate, but our failures can hopefully be learned from. And the other thing too is that I think you're going to have a hard time trying to come out and say like, we're enthusiasts and we like this thing. Because we're all enthusiasts, your fan base is going to be all enthusiasts. Like, you have to have some kind of direction. Like, we want to, you know, bring this information to light about this topic that you might not realize. A lot of the successful Patreons, even something like Movies with Mikey, like, definitely has a very specific attitude and approach that he does towards this stuff, which I think he's found a lot of success. Yeah, those are pretty stellar if you haven't checked that out. No Clip, obviously. And another list of obvious things, set realistic goals. Which we certainly have not done a lot of the time. It's very tough to do. I think when we set up our goals, they were pretty much in order of difficulty. It was like, okay, what's the one thing that we know we can commit to, and then how tough is everything past that, even to like what we assumed was the laughable goal at 30K of doing retrospectives again. And then we hit that, and I was like, oh no.
Well, I mean, that's important to note, because when we started it, we'd I think all said variations on like, yeah, we'll probably get like 2,000 or 5,000 or something. Maybe like he was like,
you said, no, the classic was Ian was the last person to leave the garage that night, and he gave me a pat on the shoulder, and you're like, we're gonna get 2. And I was like, okay.
I also ruined him telling us that we were all fired at Game Trailers too.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of.
None of you heard that story. I closed the door. That was my mistake. I didn't need to close the door.
We all knew something.
But I came into the room, like I was like, okay, and like called it, like because like the editors are in another room. I called them in and like closed the door, and I was like, so, and Ian's like, we're all fired, and I was like, don't let me tell you, you're not into it.
Sorry,
but. You know, I mean, it's important to be, your goals have to be something that you know how to do. You're like, I'm capable of doing that. I have done it in the past. I think, you know, just from an inside perspective looking out, to look at a Patreon and have a goal that's just like, you know, fingers crossed. It's just like, I've always had aspirations to do this thing. And, you know, once I get the money, hopefully I'm good at it. You know, that's, I think can be a risky endeavor.
I think
incentivizing people.
That's like things that you know you can do, and also things that you want to do.
Right.
Like, we set goals for things that like maybe we wouldn't have done anyway, but like that we want to be doing. And that's the great thing about something like this, is you can set up a business model and goals and stuff to encourage yourself and make yourself like beholden, I guess, deadlines and stuff to make sure that you get it done on time and stuff like that. So things that you want to do and maybe would do anyway, monetize that, and then that's great.
I think one reason I'm grateful that goes into my next point with you saying 2K is I think it's okay to be small. You know, like you need to accept that. You need to understand that like this might not pick up until years from now. And so you need to create that reality in your brain and understand what that's going to be like to be a small thing. Because that's the great thing to us about crowdfunding, is that like I've never had, like we have goals, right now our top goal is at 50K to get an office. I have goals way past that. We have all sorts of fun stuff that we want to do. I would love to do it. I have daydreams about that stuff. But I don't.
What are they?
Give us one.
Tell us.
What is one of your?
Tell us, Jonesy.
To make a feature film that is in movie theaters. How about that? You know.
I've been wanting to do that
About
too.
us? No.
Yeah,
But that is not a realistic goal.
We get sucked into
To
the
make more
internet.
stuff that's not video game related.
Yeah.
Ian here has a movie podcast that's pretty darn good.
Okay.
But I think that was one thing that we had in mind was that like, okay, this is Easy Allies to us at launch was a couple of specific things, and everything after that was a bonus. Like we didn't think like, God, we need to get to 10K. We need to get to those places. It's like that'll be fun if we do, and that can be very difficult at the beginning of a new enterprise to accept the fact that it's not going to be where you want it to be. And you don't want to seem desperate. You don't want to panic. You know, you don't want to think that somehow if you have set a goal for yourself and you haven't attained that's like a failure on your part. We've gone up, we've gone down, we've gone back up again, and every time it's not like, oh, that's indicative of our success or the happiness of our community. It's just where we're at, and we need to adapt to that, and that is tough to do. But yeah, we had some ideas for goals that we rejected. You had a show, I think, at
What was that?
Game Trailers.
The first
it was
Kyle.
kind of.
I was thinking because we
Popular?
were talking about that first meeting. I was actually just thinking of it. I was thinking of the moment I told you all I'm not going to do a final bossman, and the bad vibes immediately.
I think I was like, what?
Yeah. As we were talking about, like, okay, we're just going to do everything we're doing at Game Trailers, and I'm like, I'm not doing final bossman, and just like. Okay, so we're under the crowdfunding. Let me explain. I guess let me make it a bullet point. Let me make it like advice. Don't chase the money. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like crowdfunding, making money. Like don't do it for money. Do it for like this opportunity to do what you want to do. Like this, I think I've never vocalized this. This is a pompous thing to say. I think there was a time where I could have just said, I'm doing my own little solo Patreon. I'm going to just do the final bossman every week.
Right.
I think I would have made more individual money than I would have as 1/9 of
And that
Easy
time
Allies.
was 2013.
Yeah. But like, I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? That wasn't a thing that I wanted to do. I like being part of this group of 9 people. I like doing the things that I like to do. And the idea of doing a worse final bossman like was so unappealing to me. And so yeah, I guess that's like the lesson. If we got to do like lessons right now, is like don't chase the money. Like it's so hard to make an income off of Patreon, and so. Don't chase that. Chase this opportunity to make money for things that you would love to do.
Yeah.
We did do countdowns for some. It was, I think, our most popular video at Game Trailers. We came in right away, and we were just like, can we all agree we're not doing that? You know?
None of us love doing that.
Because we're not necessarily chasing the money anymore. We don't need to get that. We don't need shows right out of the bat that are getting 100,000 above on YouTube.
We don't actually care what the top 10 sewers are. We don't care.
I was very invested in that.
I remember we did the top 10 games that effed us, and of course that was like the number one countdown we ever did. And
It had a swear word in the title.
we just dropped F-bombs in every single one of our countdowns.
Yeah.
We'll make it.
Doing countdown meetings was like a goatee fight, like every week.
Yeah.
Every week.
Every Monday.
Those meetings were like fights. Yeah. They weren't like civil discussions. They were like, no, you moron, this sewer is better.
It was funnier that like when it came to like the jollier of the concepts, that's like when it would get the bloodiest. I remember like music franchises, which we're like listening to like Chrono Trigger music and yelling at each other. And we had an infamous story time with Damiani goal that we totally threw in the trash because we realized like, oh, our podcast is story time with Kyle and friends, and
right.
Basically everything we do lots of podcasts and stuff. So like we have lots of Q&A.
Well, and then
stuff on the site, and
that goal became the movie podcast goal and the friend code. So Damiani got a Nintendo podcast too, and then I started doing the movie podcast because a bunch of people had been asking for it. But then we also at the same time did something. It was like, I feel like it was like maybe the most businessy we've ever been, where I was like, all right, for less than the cost of a movie ticket, I'm going to introduce a new tier at just a few dollars above a different tier just to bump us over 40, you know? And I was like, that's a good idea. I feel dirty.
Yeah. It's another good point to mention is none of us are businessmen.
We are bad
None
at
of us went
business.
to school for anything outside of artsy-fartsy stuff.
We don't understand it at all.
So learn from the mistakes that we've made.
Yeah. If you start a thing and suddenly it becomes, like if you think it's going to hit 2K and then it hits 20K, your fingers crossed. I mean, hey. Yeah. But start like an actual LLC and like W-2 yourselves immediately. Yeah. Because we learned for that the hard way.
Be cool if the next slide was like W2 yourself.
Yeah.
So your taxes. So community. When we first started, we'll get into production after this, but production was the number one thing I was afraid of when we first started Easy Allies.
I'm still afraid of it every
beginning
day.
year two.
Yeah.
I've got the fears are still there. You know, there are many of them, but I definitely, when we started year two, I definitely reminisce and look back and realize how much more focused I was on community than production, because there are many things that we can do with community. There are many lessons we can learn that we can immediately put into action. Where, you know, my garage is the garage. It's not, you know, there is stuff that we can do with it, but we are limited to that space.
Thank you, by the way.
For the garage?
For just like letting us be in your house like all the time.
That took a year and a half. That was nice.
Have we never said that to you? Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. Say let your fans belong to something. You know, when they sign up and give you even just $1, you know, make them feel like, oh, I'm in a club now. You know, like
right.
now I've cut the thing out of the Highlights magazine and mailed it in, and now I'm like in the Orphan Annie fan club.
Do you remember those?
Yeah, I got my decoder pin.
Wait, is there an Orphan Annie fan club?
You said Christmas Carol? This guy doesn't see movies.
Christmas
Story, A Christmas Story.
Was that a real thing, or was that made up for Christmas Story?
I mean, Orphan Annie was a real thing. That's like what
Yeah,
the
but why
musical
would you be in
was
an
based on.
Orphan Annie fan club?
You get your decoder
Why would you
pin,
be in
and
an
you
Easy
can decode
Allies
secret-
fan?
Okay, I don't know.
Why anything? I don't know.
But one outlet that I've always had a lot of respect for is Screw Attack. I love Screw Attack, and I love Game Attack now. And at GT, when we were not as community focused as we should have been, they were really empowering their community. They called them G1s. They definitely, like, I got a sense that like Screw Attack fans like felt like they were a part of something. And so when we started Easy Allies, which I didn't know it was going to be called that until I told the group, like, all right, now the most difficult part, we need to figure out what we're called.
And then I was like, we're Easy Alliance.
And I was like, what?
And I was like, yeah, duh. Huber's been saying that joke for years.
missed that meeting.
We're like the good version of that. But then we couldn't get the Twitter, so we switched to Easy Allies.
Which worked out. But again, it works out because we call each other allies, we call our fans allies, and so you get that sense of, like, that's not fake, that's not a ploy. Like, you get a sense of camaraderie, of, we're all neighbors and partners in this endeavor.
I like that this is maybe weird to say, but I like that the term for each other is the same as the term for everybody else, because then it's like, because we're like, I don't know, I feel really weird being like on this thing and like you're 4 feet down here, because like that's not how I look at this. Like, it's very weird, but like, yeah, I like the equal footing of everybody.
I tried to get like a booster from my seat so I could just be like,
that's true. He asked them.
You guys. Create lines of communication. This is something that is definitely, I think we just kind of did and didn't really realize how important it was and how valuable it would be. But I think in almost every single endeavor we do, there is some kind of Q&A component, some like call out that we ask our fans for something and then they contribute. Kyle, you can speak on love and respect, and just those are some of the best conversations I think we've had on the podcast.
So it's weird. As employees of Game Trailers, Jones, we didn't frequently get fan mail. We didn't really have like an active fan base in the same way that we do today. And like, that's because your fan base is everything. If I can be extremely frank right now, when we were Game Trailers, we would have filled up this room, right? As Easy Allies, we got a good third, but this third is like so much more condensed, and like that's kind of it. You know what I mean? We have a reduced audience, but the audience has become your community, and I think that's the huge difference. Is that like I think we have a greater connection with each of these people than we did back as that, and so I think that's like the most important thing is when you're on a Patreon, when you're crowdfunded. You're partners with everybody. They are you. They're the only reason you can move forward. And so, yeah, I feel like every time I owe the community, I owe the audience, and so that pressure is there for sure. But it's a motivator. It's really, really good. And that's how I would talk about that. Is creating lines of communication is so important because they're you. They're how you get to go.
So we have our Patreon, which we takes comments through. We have Bloodworth and Ben Moore. Ben Moore was assigned to monitor our Patreon. Bloodworth does it because he's Bloodworth. Because he's amazing.
Bloodworth, like, because Patreon is very weird on my phone. And last night we were at some fan gamer little gaming thing. It was pretty rad. And I was like, oh crap, my show just went live. I got to post on Patreon, but I couldn't do it on my phone. So I just went on Slack and I was like, Blood, can you type this in Patreon and post it for me, please? And it was like, 9:30 p.m. and he was just like immediately like, yeah, it's posted. I was
Tip
like,
number 10, find
thanks,
yourself
man.
a Bloodworth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Get yourself
thee
a
to a
Bloodworth.
Bloodworth.
Where did we go? We have a forum on our website, which has been really great, which I wish we had more time to be interactive in. It's kind of fun to see. Again, Bloodworth is in there all the time. But it's really nice to, give people an avenue to communicate. And like I said, Friend Code, Frame Trap, or podcasts, like all of those have Q&A components.
I read all the comments, Jones.
Yeah.
On any of the videos I post, I read through all those comments.
I do. We have producer credits that we do once a month, at the end of the month, for all the people that produce the podcast. And I get misty-eyed every single time because I have to manually type those out into Premiere. And so every time I'm like typing it out, I'm like, oh, I don't know that name. Like, I love you. It's great. But it's that connectivity.
It's because like a new person.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
That just like I don't know if they were like at a lower tier and then bumped up, or just found us and not only dropped a buck, but are a podcast producer. That means a lot. And this might seem like a dangerous thing to say to a room of people who are possibly likely giving us money, but don't take every piece of advice. One thing that was really tricky when we first started was we've all read negative comments on YouTube. If anybody's produced a video they posted on YouTube,
ever?
like there's got to be somewhere in there that doesn't like it, and we'll let you know in all caps. But
every day,
every single decision that we make, there are people that pay us money to produce content that are on both sides of that argument. They're like, no, I want it to be done this way or versus that. And I think you have to look for inspiration in the advice that you get from your fans. So if something resonates for you personally, somebody says something and you're like, yes, I've thought about that and I wanted to do that and that was a good idea, and not like, I don't want to do that, but that person just said it. Like you do need to weigh comments from everybody. And I think, I'm curious what you guys think about this, but like I tend to favor Patreon comments and suggestions over
generally
YouTube and
well,
comments
just because
on
YouTube, like
stuff that flies by at 1,000,000 miles an hour on Twitch chat.
The net is dark and full of terrors. Like for every piece of advice, the ones that hurt the most are the ones that are really negative and really mean, but then there's something that you've been thinking yourself anyway, like. Yeah, the camera does look like garbage on this, like, you're right. I mean, you didn't need to say all that other stuff about, but like, but then you like don't want to change it because you're like, I don't want to give that guy credit because, but yeah.
We're going to keep it looking bad just cuz.
Yeah, intentionally. Got a really good camera, put crappy filters on it.
But it's tough because they're not wrong. Like a lot of the time when we see people on either side of a debate or something that we're thinking of changing, like both sides are right. Like there are pluses and minuses to doing both of those things. It's just a question of like, you need to understand if you're on the inside, if you're the one producing the content, you know what you're capable of, you know what you're willing to do and willing to change, and just don't be afraid if there's a really nice person that gives you a good amount of money every month that has a really good suggestion that you're just not willing to to make that change just yet. Because it's tough.
A lot of stuff for things that like we know, like there are a certain number of a lot of production related stuff where it's like. Probably most of the things, probably if you're seeing it, like we know about it. Like, yeah, our camera is not a $10,000
Unless it's on Twitch,
camera.
then we have no idea.
Oh yeah. But like, we don't have a huge budget. We don't have sponsorships to get us cameras and stuff like that. And like, man, I would love it, but we know.
Small fries. Jones, I wanna hit one more bullet point that you had before we move on to production. Thank you, Jones. It's the one that says, do stuff that's not a goal. I love that.
Oh, right, yeah.
So we have extra shows. Fiasco Knots is a really good example where like we couldn't have really made that a tier, made that a goal on Patreon. It really wouldn't make sense to like charge people for that. We did it because we wanted to, and I think people really appreciate something like Fiasco Knots. Yeah. Something like the Gundam streams where we put Gundams together for 4 hours is nothing we could have done at Game Trailers. That is financially stupid. And obviously,
I love bringing that up to people. They're like, wow, yeah, crowdfunding, how's that been going for you? And I'm like, great, once a month for 4 hours we build Gundams, and they love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is like it was kind of requested. It was like listening to the community. That was like people asked us to do things like that, and we just do them. You know what I mean? They're not tied to the tiers and things like that. And I think people appreciate it. And most importantly, we do them because we want to do them. And so we're all having fun together and feeding off each other. And I think things like that are important too.
I mean, that ties back into like, I think my favorite piece, maybe if I had one piece of advice, it would be the following. Like we did Fiasconauts. I had the idea and the name for Fiasconauts for years. Like back in the GT days, I was like, I should start a YouTube channel where we play Fiasco, and I don't call it Fiasconauts. But it's just like when you're working for corporate overlords, whom I appreciate and I respect, you know. But you know, after an 8-hour day, you're tired, you know, and that's something to keep in mind too if you're going to do something like this, because it might be a side gig for a while until it picks up, if it picks up. And it's like, you're going to be really tired, so make it something that you want to do anyway. But like, yeah, that wasn't a goal. And like, I didn't plan on doing a song every week for Easy Update, but then I realized that it was just really good practice. And so now I subject people to songs without them wanting it. And I'm just like, hey man, this is just me practicing. Like, I'm just learning Ableton, and like, what does that reverb thing do? Let's try that, you know? So it's just like, push yourself, do things you want to do, and like, use it as practice. Like, do something that you're getting better at, you know? And if people are supplementing that with crowdfunding income, then hey, you're winning on all cylinders. That's not how that.
Yeah, no, totally.
You're winning.
You did
Is
it.
that how
You made
engines
it.
work?
It's a new shirt now.
Yeah.
Winning on all cylinders.
We're working on the merch thing.
I wish my
by the way.
practice was as good as your practice, Ian.
Yeah.
Well, another thing too, I think one of the biggest lessons that we waltzed right into, totally oblivious, that I will never forget when we plan events now, is we had our 1-year anniversary in the March of this year, and we were so excited. We were planning a live event. We were going to do it nearby. It was so many things way out of our comfort zones. I still just cherish the look on Ben's face when we told him we had to get on stage and do a skit. Like, and
we pitched it wrong though,
Yeah.
because Jones and I are like theater kids, you know, and like, so we were like very excited about this. We were like, I was like, maybe we can get a choir up there and like a band, and like we'll sing and act stuff out and do it. And then Ben and Brad were just like, what? We don't want to do any of that. And I was like, I did this backwards. We can do that. You're going to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But we had all our eggs in the basket of this live event, and then I think it was like the week before that we got a legitimate question from the other 90% of our community that was not going to be at that event, even more than like 96%.
Right.
That was like, I can't go. That's great that you're doing that. It's not going to be streamed. What do I get? Like,
Right.
I've supported you, like in some cases, like a lot, you know, and what's for me? And so we did a 12-hour live stream very hastily, like put it together right at the last minute, and that was such an important lesson to realize that like anytime we want to celebrate something, anytime we want to focus on another part, again, this is not production, this is our community. Anytime we're doing something for the community, we don't want to pick favorites. We don't want to. We're having that issue now. This is not a streaming room, and so you know, I tweeted out right before. I was like, hey, just last reminder, we're doing a panel today, and like 5 people were like, live stream? And I was like, no, like, but we're hopefully going to record it, and hopefully the audio and everything works out okay. So just make sure you're, you know, if you are trying to build a community, make sure that the events that you do, the things that you do for the community, you don't throw the word community out there if only a couple people are going to be able to enjoy it or appreciate it, or let you know how it went and give you constructive criticism on how to do it better. So thank you for that lesson. Finally, Ian's favorite subject, our awesome production.
Yeah.
You gotta work with what you have. I was terrified like the night before when we launched that I'm just like, nobody's gonna be in it. That's gonna be in my house. Like we're gonna be in my, like, I like my garage. I like being in there, but I was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. And I think, you know, even us, like going from working in production, you know, I was at GT for 14 years, and I worked with, you know, Jeff Keighley and behind the scenes in the, you know, GTTV, and, you know, with Spike for the big live events and stuff like that, and then going to like our garage with like a almost broken camera I borrowed from one of the guys I co-founded GT with, and you know, our little Yeti mic in our first podcast. And while I hope and you know, fingers crossed that there is a kind of charm, they're like, oh, they're trying, look at that. You have to understand, no matter, it's okay. Like if you're honest about like, this is me, this is what I have, this is what I can do. I think it can invigorate your audience to be like, oh, that's great. I would like this to look better. Therefore, I can feel like I'm going to get a return on my investment to improve this. Yeah, and just, I don't know, like just be honest about where you want to be, where you are now, and what you're capable of doing. Because I think that I think you can be scared of being like, we're not ready for this, we don't deserve this attention, we don't deserve this money, versus being like, no, we do. Yeah, I'm super happy about this. Like, if you're not, communicate that to your audience. You know, say, like, talk about the things. Don't harp on it. Don't make like that the message of every time you get on a mic. But I think that honesty is appreciated, and I think people enjoy seeing you build as we've done.
Like, you know, there's an old saying in the entertainment biz, content is king. You know. Sorry. But like, if you're doing something that you're enthusiastic about, like, probably someone will be enthusiastic about it. Whatever, you know, like that kind of thing. So, I mean, and our production-wise, like, we're trying to like stair-step up good stuff. Because, I mean, at Game Trailers, it was kind of funny because we were like the ugly stepchild, kind of, where like, but we had a $30,000 TriCaster that we could use whenever we wanted. We had cameras that looked pretty good, like
studio with lights.
A studio that had like light, and like those Kino flows are expensive, you know, and like that, like Kyle and I got into a little tiff one time because he was like, "We need a better camera," and I'm like, "We need lights. You have to light cameras, or they don't look good at all. It doesn't matter what camera it is."
Is that tiff still going on? Like, could we
no,
get,
we're
can we get a little of that right now?
Cool.
Okay.
We're gonna get some more lights though. That'll be great.
Yeah, on top of this point, I do want to stress, like, always be improving. If you are making money, if it's coming in, spend that money toward improving what you have. Like, work with what you have, sure, when you begin, but always add on top of it. Not just because it like looks good, like it shows that you're investing the money that people are giving to you wisely, but all we can do as humans is get better until we die. So like just
that might be my favorite thing you've ever said.
Yeah, it's like always be improving with your content again, but like also with your production, like get better at how it looks.
You just said the C word,
sounds. Yeah. But I want to make it like make your writing better, make your performances better, but also production better too. Like always get on top of that stuff because you can get left behind quickly.
Yeah.
But if you can't get good lights and you can't get a good camera, try to be consistent.
Sure, all right. It's good advice, though. It's true.
Because that's the thing you can do on any budget is, you know, and I was hoping that was going to get like a massive laugh. Like, these guys are consistent.
Like, Jordan's got a laugh from me, dude.
Yeah, no, more than anybody. But one thing that we did when we first started out is we said, okay, let's figure out what we're going to do no matter what happens, good or bad, financially via our Patreon. And that was, let's meet once a week. We'll do a podcast. Yeah. Almost kind of selfishly because we just enjoy doing that. We just enjoy hanging out and talking about games. Let's all stream once a week privately from our homes. We'll commit to that, and then we'll do that every week. We will do that consistently. A round of applause for Mr. Ian Hink, who has not missed a week of Easy Update since Easy Allies started.
You don't have to.
Yes.
Clap.
Yes. Because none of the other shows have done that outside of the podcast.
Yeah.
But I think because stuff's going to go wrong, personal issues are going to pop up that you're going to have to, you know, bow out of stuff. We're lucky because there's 9 of us that, like, so if one of us drops out of something, somebody else can fill in.
There's a trick though with Easy Update is I've intentionally made it so that you don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
So I've kicked out some bad episodes, some real like I'm like, oh crap, it's Friday episodes, you know, like oh no, so you know.
No, I think that ties
the quality is
consistent schedule though.
Right.
By the
Consistency.
Yeah.
And consistent timing, not consistent quality, maybe.
But I think those Tuesdays were really important. I think that was like one of the smartest decisions that we made looking back, because now like all of these other shows that their schedules are getting kind of crazy are kind of starting to like leech on Tuesdays. Like, oh well, let's just show up Tuesday to shoot it because we know all the allies are going to be there. Everybody's going to be present on Tuesday because in our minds like that is easy A day. Like we've gotten together for other events. We've done 12-hour streams and long shoots. But it's nice to have at least one thing that you know you can commit to, that you know you can deliver, you know, to your audience. And finally, we're getting close to Q&A time. Keep communicating, which we've been talking about this entire time, so we don't need to like go into crazy specific examples. But two things that hurt real bad was right when we started, I was like, hey, I'm going to do a Patreon exclusive show called Cup of Jones, and it's going to be every week. Totally going to pull that off. I think I made like 3 weeks, and it was like, I can't, you know. And I just tried to communicate with our audience and tell them, like, I know this is important. Like, I've actually, seen, I think it has been a detriment to our Patreon that I have not been, more news on that soon. If Copa Jones is going to change a little bit in the future, because I think it is important to be consistent, to obsess more about the consistency of a show and less about the quality or specifically like the material in the show, but just that like people can count on it.
If you would just quit cutting all those reviews, Jones, you'd get these things done on time.
I know.
Yeah.
What do you say? What's your slogan?
Fast and loose.
No, it's shit 'em out.
Oh, yeah. The other one, yeah. Shit 'em out.
Jones, just shit that out.
Just shit it out, Jones. Come on, it's a review. It should take 2 hours. Come on.
You hear that, and it just, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Editing tip, two editing tips. Set H to add edit, obviously. And then if you find a clip that works, use it. And then remember, and if you find something better, replace it later.
Yes.
Because then you get done and you're done.
See, the replacing it later I don't often do in reviews.
But like, don't dig through all the footage for reviews.
Right.
If you're cutting a feature film, like, watch the dailies. Be good at being an editor. But yeah. If you're cutting a review,
Somebody in the audience says, "Oh, I'm editing a feature film. Great advice."
Be good.
I should watch the dailies. Thank you.
Yeah. It's true, though,
And we have a show called Community Comments, which I should be doing right now. That is like, I think June is the next episode we're going to do. Like, it's late, but it's
June
something.
Right now?
No, June is the episode that has not gone up yet.
Oh.
People are waiting for those hot E3 takes.
You think they'll have an act 2?
But it's fun. You can kind of look. It's like a time capsule. You can look back and be like, "Wow, I was way off back in June."
How sweet we
I've
were.
grown so much in the last 3 months. But again, you communicate to your audience. You let them know like what's happening, how things can evolve, how shows can change. Again, it was what we talked about goals. It's okay to take goals away and to change them, just as long as people understand why that you communicate. Even often if that does not put you in the best light, I think people really appreciate that. In the community, so
that's something that's important too. Is like, transparency, even if it makes you look bad, is good. Is better.
It's everything. I mean, it's because and that's I really feel since we started Easy Allies, like at Game Trailers, I felt like, okay, this was a site that I created. I'm beholden to Viacom or Defy, to my employees, to the audience, and it's. The whole idea has completely changed since we started Easy Allies, where it's like, oh no, we're all in this together. Like, we are accountable for what we do, but at the same time, like you are the ones that are sponsoring this. Like, you are the ones. I think one of my favorite moments in the last year and a half was going to Michael Pachter's E3 party and sitting down with just venture capitalists, just money people, like suit, tie, do not play video games, and talking to them about our business model, and them just like, what? And they're like, yeah, like they're all involved, and we don't, they're like, yeah, but I mean, that YouTube revenue's got to go. I was like, that's not something really sweat. It's not like we're not going to change a show of ours to try like hunt those downloads on YouTube.
Right.
And that just.
Well, and since they changed the ad thing, it's not even really worth it anymore.
So.
Anyway.
You all did that. If you're supporting us on Patreon, we all made that happen together, and that's really cool. So again, the size is not that important to us, just that it exists, and that we can look at our community, who's there, look at the responses to what we do, and then mold what Easy Allies is around that, not have our own preconceived notions, and then then that's what Easy A is.
Very quickly, I want to explain something to the audience. When Jones says downloads on YouTube,
oh God, yeah,
he means views. That's holdover jargon from GameTrailers.com when people would download the trailers off the website, and Jones wanted downloads.
You would click the QuickTime player link.
Yeah. So that just means views. It's just shorthand for views.
So yeah, we got about 12 minutes left in the presentation, and we would love some questions. If any of you all got questions, we have mics up on either side. So
about anything, doesn't have to be.
Hop in line. Yes, please. Anything you can think of.
Crowdfunding. You popped up real quick. How's it going?
Oh, fine. Quick question. Why you decide to do the 5 on the game reviews? Why you decide to do the 5-star rating instead of the 10 out of 10?
I'll see you guys later.
That was one of the, I think, craziest debates in the creation of the company, was figuring that out. Because the 100-point system that we had at GT was thought up in 2005. And at the beginning of when people started making videos about reviews for games. And so it was definitely something where like, this is a fantastic opportunity where we can look back and figure out how we want to translate the system. And there were some of the allies who were like, I want to make that smaller. I want to make, I think the major argument was, I don't want the specifics, like really nailing down the minutia of why I think this game is good or bad or better than one game or the other. I want that to be in the words of the script and not necessarily reflected in the score. That was difficult for me because I am someone that can give something an 8.2 and like, no, yes, like it's not an 8.1, it's not an 8.3, it's a very specific score. And other people in the Allies were like, that makes no sense to me at all. Like that's just whatever. Like it's 4 stars.
I was like
and
a
then
7,
I will
a 7 is a
specify
C.
in there why it,
That's bad.
Yeah.
But they're like 7s are good, and I'm like, what?
It is
But,
worth noting that half of us do hate the stars. Some of us don't review games, though, so maybe our opinions don't matter as much, but some of us hate the stars.
Stars.
And also, shout out to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for a very good score. Okay?
Yeah. Such a good game.
Breaking my Switch right now.
How's it going?
Hello. Well, he reminded me, the star system doesn't seem to have as much granularity. So one game that has 4 stars, another one that has 4 stars, one might be better than the other, but that's just a quick note. That's the reason why I don't believe it.
Yeah, I hear you.
We agree with that.
I hear you.
Last Guardian
A little
got
bit
5
more,
stars. Huh?
yeah, a little bit more granularity would be nice, but that's not what my question was. So basically, one of the things that I really liked was a game called Virtua Tennis. And I found out, it's a game that I missed back in my younger days when I played on Dreamcast. But I found out about it through your countdown. So that is a really good proponent for why I feel that you should bring countdowns back. Because the countdowns were one of my favorites because it just helped me learn about games. Not really necessarily where they were ranked, but just the fact that I could learn about a game that I missed from the back then, and then I could play it, and I've been playing it with my friends, and I just love it. So I learned about, it made number 10 on your top 10 Dreamcast games. So that's one reason I think you should bring countdowns back, because it was one of the great things about your game trailers, and it kept me watching from when I was watching on game trailers. So
I think that's very fair.
Excellent suggestion, yeah.
Here's the thing, though, is like, for me personally, I get much more gratification out of live streaming one of my favorite games. So, like, 2 of my favorite streams have been Parappa the Rapper and Guitar Man, just like sharing with you like a game that I really love.
That's true.
And so I get like, it's even like a little more intimate of like sharing and making people aware of games that I love from the past. And so, yeah, I totally get that countdowns raise awareness of games, but that is something we try to do, is to like show off games that we think like are understated and deserve more attention.
Yeah, it was just nice because you would quickly go through them. Like, here's number 10 was, Virtua Tennis. Number 9 was Jet Radio, stuff like that. So
Maybe I could do a countdown, like easy update.
yeah, something like that. I just think it's a
Just chuck
Or a
them in
goal,
there,
or
whatever.
a goal,
That's what I loved about Countdown.
I think one of the other things too is they're extremely time intensive. They're very,
That's
very,
true.
very difficult. Like it would take one. I think like Brad Ellis really chipped in to help a lot with countdowns when he came on the team, and that was pretty much all he did all week. And so it's like that.
And different people wrote every paragraph, like every entry, and then
Had to get all
we
those
had
games and,
Don and I, back in the later game trailers days, were editing constantly. So like, yeah, it was like a 12-person endeavor to get those done in time.
Did you just
And
eat one of these mints?
I had a green one. It's
smells
not a
so
mint.
good.
It's
What
like
is
a
it?
candy.
Oh.
It's like lime or
They
something.
got a little dish of candies for us.
Pretty
up
good.
here.
Who else there?
Okay,
And
all right.
keep the greatest games. I love that
The
show.
Hall of Greats.
Yeah, Hall of Greats. That is really good. So great idea.
That's awesome. That came out of here.
Yeah.
Hey, I just have a question about how the kind of month-to-month, constantly changing funding model compares to your experience when you were growing game trailers, and how that impacts what content you can plan that might take more than one day's filming to do.
Ask one more time, because 5,000 ideas just flooded in my head. Specifically, the last part.
Specifically, the fact that you have maybe content you'd like to do that might take more than just people sitting down for 12-hour stream, and you don't know if you'll have enough funding for 3 months straight. Like, how does that impact your planning?
I think the biggest change in that regard is having a boss. That like that there were Jeff Keighley came in and ran GT for like a year and a half. And there were moments where I would go in and sit down with Jeff Keighley and be like, hey, I have all these ideas. And he's like, nope, 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 nope. And I'm like, great, next meeting, thanks. So like, there's this whole perception of like how creatively you design a show. Countdowns, like we did countdowns, they were fun. I really enjoyed those meetings. We were capable of doing it within the company. But we did them because they earned. We did them because they were one of the most popular types of videos that you could do on YouTube. And so that was we made them fun because we were working on them, but like the reason that they started was because of that. And so like a Gundam, like Jeff Keighley would say, definitely capital no to a Gundam building stream for 4 hours every month. And so
I think anyone would. It's not fair to.
Yeah, right.
No, of course. Yeah, John Slessor would.
No to that,
Shane Satterfield would. Anyone who was in charge at the time.
Well, now sometimes you've got like 8 of us saying no.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about this a little bit because I think Patreon's really cool in our instance, in which it's like an opportunity to do whatever we want. And I looked at myself and I was asking myself, what do I want to make? And I want to make a series, a scripted series. But as you said, we have budget constraints, and I tried to think of like the cheapest possible way to do a series, and that's why I came up with this thing called Box Peak, which is little. Don't clap yet.
No episode's up, and you got applause. How dare you? How dare you?
But anyway. Yeah. But anyway, it's like paper puppets. You know what I mean? I figured out like I could make this show for $2,000. And even that kind of sucks because I'm taking money away from everyone else in the group to make that show, and so like. It is hard to justify, but I think it'll help Easy Allies to do a thing like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to do a live action series that we shoot around LA and have a nice studio and lights and cameras, but like that's not realistic for us. So I think you just scale down your ideas. You just scale them down to do something you can do for sure.
And Box Peak is a limited run thing, so it's like we hit that goal and we knew, and then that was it. So then it's like, okay, we hit that goal, take that money. You know, we all get paid slightly less that month, and then we make Box Peak, and then. Yeah. We recently recorded the first part of the vocals for the theme song of Box Peak, and it is so good. So be excited.
I think also like there's a lot of singular development that happens just individually. Someone will be like, I have an idea, they produce it, they put it up. None of us were involved at all. Like one thing that we were joking about earlier is we were like, we think the $200 goal of the Ben Moore private D&D sessions happen, but we've never seen them. Like, we've never been a part of them.
They're private streams, so we have no way of knowing.
But there's just a lot that we just kind of leave up to one person to do, and that was almost never the case at Game Trailers. It was always a group effort.
We got a lightning round these.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. My question was for, I think whenever you're making like a crowdfunded service, the biggest question is what content is going to be free and paid.
Yeah.
And so what was that conversation like when you were coming up with Easy Allies? Do you have any like disagreements internally, or do you have a pretty clear idea of, you know, this is stuff that we want to do for paid or free?
We agreed pretty early that early for patrons was a good way to go.
Yeah.
And I think the only exclusive show is Cup of Jones, right?
Yeah, and that's a good example of being careful with what advice you want to take and what not. Is like, I know there's people in our community, probably people in this room, that do not like the fact that Cup of Jones is exclusive. But I wanted something to be exclusive, and that was kind of the purpose of the show. That's why I built the show to be. And so, yeah, but I think that was maybe one of the only things that I've considered maybe changing. But I think we were pretty in line with everything.
There weren't a lot of like arguments about it. The one thing we wanted to do early on was patron exclusive streams, but the tech wasn't really there at the time. Now you can kind of do it with
Our Q&As
Patreon
are exclusive.
Oh, the Q&As are exclusive?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
they go up later.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Those are.
You can watch them
later.
later.
Yeah. So we want to make sure you're not taking anything away from people. And so like Cup of Jones was an extra thing that never existed before.
Yes.
And the podcast we've kind of figured would be our popular show that's up weekly, and that's why we decided to make that one like the $5 tier. Like I think that was pretty early established too. Like you get it a couple of days early for $5 tier, and like that was it. And so like I think that's basically, we're not very good at that. We could do much better in monetizing our tiers, but I think it's also important to say like we don't care too much about maximizing the money we're making. More about just making everybody happy, I think, is how we handle that.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. So I get a lot of different like podcasts and YouTube channels, like 12 different podcasts, like probably around 100 different YouTube descriptions, and like. I love you guys' content, but there's sort of just so much of it.
Too long.
I go on YouTube at night. I'm like, oh, good, what am I watching tonight? I'm like, I see Easy Allies put up videos like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours long.
Right.
I'm like, I want to watch, but it's sort of daunting, you know. I'm like, well, I wonder is that something you guys like think about? Because I watch all your shorter channels, all the reviews and like the Huber syndrome, all that kind of stuff, and I sort of want to be kind of more engaged with it, but I just don't have the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that sort of a concern?
Yeah.
I think the more is more, like more is better mantra was kind of like built from the fears, will this work, when we first started. So it's like, okay, let's, we can't get back in the studio. We can't maybe do some of the more popular shows, Timeline Countdown, that we were known for before. Let's just do as much as we possibly can to appease the most people in our community and make them happy. And I think after Friend Code and the reaction shots got greenlit, I like kind of put the wall, but it was like, no more podcasts. Like, no more thing that's an hour. So yeah, Box Peak will be a lot shorter, and things we want to move forward are like less us sitting in chairs and talking and more different types of shows.
Like I always want to produce shorter, like I try to keep easy updates shorter than they generally are. But yeah, like this long form content, talking in a chair content is repeatable and faster to produce. So that's kind of where that started from. But yeah, we want to make shorter stuff for sure.
If I could be a cranky business person, the return on a short video is worse. The time you spent into it. Like if you look at like the Deus Ex retrospectives and the views they get, you know what I mean? Versus like the views we get on like reacting to something. Like the effort of doing reactions is so low and the effort of a retrospective is so high. So like putting a ton of effort into a short video is like often you don't see the return. So you have to love the video you're making in order to really do that.
Well, and just have the time to do it.
Yeah.
Effort means time kind of too. It's not like we're lazy. It's just like there's only so many hours in a day.
But we do want to say we get you. We 100%
we hear that. We think about it a lot.
Clear.
And we know that is a concern. So thanks for addressing that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the criticism. Yeah, let's get constructive.
Yeah.
Jackbox.
Hi guys. First of all, great panel.
Thank you.
Thanks. We were worried about it.
You guys have very easy chemistry, and I want to talk about that. Actually, you talked a lot about communicating with your community, and I'm curious about how you guys communicate between each other. There's 9 of you. I don't know what your hierarchy is within the allies. How do you do feedback? How do you let people know when something small happened that like jilted you or something like that, or creative differences? What is your communication process like?
This is a great question.
Yeah, I love this. In theory, we're hierarchyless. We're agrarian. There are definitely some holdovers, like with Brandon and Blood.
Yeah, Blood is managing editor. I'm editor-in-chief. That was mostly to communicate to people that those are our roles at Game Trailers. So when we shifted Easy Allies, we wanted to walk right in the room and be like, nothing changed. We're the same.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But like on paper, like officially, we're all on the same level.
John can't tell us what to do.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And we got
use coasters is about as far as I can get.
Put things on the calendar. We got really lucky. We were talking about this at dinner last night, where it's like there are 9 of us and we don't hate each other. We don't like, we're not like hanging out as friends constantly, but we'll go to the movies sometimes or whatever. And like, I've enjoyed the entirety of PAX with these guys. Like I was stuck in an airport for 12 hours with Bossman 2 days ago, and it was like fine. Yeah. So it's like we don't hate each other, which is rare because like I think a lot of office situations it gets bad. Fall in with people that you trust, that will get their stuff done, because that's where things fall apart. And we use Slack.
And open to criticism. Like we make jokes with each other, we're hard on each other, we absolutely tell each other when we do things that we don't like. And I think that's really important, as you said. Like if you can't critique each other, then it's going to build up. And so just letting it ooze out whenever you possibly can is really strong.
And I think we're good communicators. Like, if someone's feelings are hurt, we'll talk about it. Like, if someone says a thing, it's like, hey, that was, not cool. And then taking that and saying, like, all right, that was my bad, sorry, that's huge. Yeah.
Like we were walking last night down the street, and I brought up something with Kyle that he said on a podcast, and I was like, "Were you messing with me, or did you mean?" And he was like, "No, I was messing with you." I was like, "Oh, okay." But like, it's really good to check in, to always be like, "Okay, well, how was that? Was that okay?"
Yeah.
A lot of that happens after our group streams on Tuesday nights. We're like, right when we shut off, we're like, everybody cool?
We have a
like,
half-hour emotional check-in.
Yeah.
We all breathe together.
We sit cross-legged in a circle.
Yeah. How much time do we have left? Is it close?
We're like overtime. We got to get rolling.
We've got.
Nope. She said we're good. She'll let us know. The clipboard will come flying through the room at our heads.
Let's try to get through everybody.
Okay, we're going to do this.
Question.
6 more. We got this. Thank you.
Howdy, allies. For a community that has been built on love and respect, this has obviously been this is great meeting all y'all and meeting you guys. But obviously there are times where there are shitty people who end up in the dark places of the internet, such as GAF or YouTube.
Yeah.
And I've seen that where it becomes like they say something that's not exactly constructive, as you just kind of mentioned there, and it becomes like everyone kind of piles on, and it becomes a very self-defeating cycle of not love and respect. At what point do you, as the leaders of this kind of community, eventually say, you know what, we need to cut the head off the snake and say, like, you're not welcome in viewing our content, or we don't want your money anymore as Patreon supporters?
I don't know if we don't want your money anymore, which sounds terrible to say out loud. I personally don't think we've had that. I don't think we've had anybody coming at us via Patreon, but certainly we have. I mean, I'll just direct that to you. I mean, you've probably got the most venom
As
from
the
anybody.
queer one, I definitely get the most, like, you know, but generally it's not. You know, it's on YouTube most of the time. Sometimes it's in chat. We have beautiful, wonderful moderators, some of whom are here today. Thank you very much for the mods, who police it. The chat and the comments police themselves a lot of the time. We sometimes step in. We've had a few things where things got a little weird and like it's a continuing issue that we've had to be like, all right, you got to cool it. We've had like conversations with a few people where it's like, we want to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're coming from the right place, but like this is how this can be taken, you know. But we haven't had any patrons that are bad. We got a couple when we were like, "Hey, Nazis are bad." We had a couple of exit surveys on Patreon that were like, "I don't agree with that," and we're like, "All right, see you later." It's like, it's fine by us.
Peace.
Yeah, but it's you generally just kind of like you learn after a while to like. You know, just picture them in their underwear. You know, it's like these people are a little upset.
I think one of the other things too is that I'm so grateful to do the producer credits and stuff like that, and memorize names and become familiar specifically with who people are, what their name is on Patreon, what their name is on Twitch, you know, what their Twitter handles are, so that you can recognize like, oh, whoa, this one person that I really respect is kind of getting out of control versus who's that? That's fine, you know, like that's just one person coming in. Like I think our community is strong enough to just kind of like. You know, silence that stuff and not engage and just kind of let them be like, nobody, I'm not getting, all right, I'm out of here. And just like that, sometimes it kind of wonderfully solves itself.
All right, 5 minutes. That was a great question.
Thank you.
With such a big switch in business models in such a short period of time, kind of a question that I've been thinking on was there anything that carried over from the GT Dave & Buster's this is what is going forward.
Whoa,
that
what a
carried
deep cut.
over into this is what we're going to do as you
I want to give some context for this because it was January of 2016.
Yeah.
It was 2016. We were still all employees of Game Trailers. Jones says we're doing an off-site meeting. We're going to crack Game Trailers because we knew the clock was ticking. Yeah. We knew we were probably going to get fired eventually. We were like, let's make a plan. And actually one of those plans was to have a premium, like a little Game Trailers premium where people could give us money monthly. And so that kind of carried over.
Yeah.
One of the ideas was to have Ben host a podcast. And that was like shot down. I was like, no, we can't do that. It's like, so that was definitely an idea that we brought up at that meeting. And like, you know, we could do Ben's podcast now. We could totally do it.
Yeah.
We want to do that. Let's do Ben talk about video game podcasts. And that totally happened.
It was really funny because my math, I figured like we had like 5,000 or 6,000 really dedicated fans at GT at the end. Mm-hmm. And we were like, so maybe a subscription model would have worked, but I don't think it would have because it would have been them just paying Defy and then Defy just paying us, you know?
Yeah.
Again, not a problem, but, and like now we have 6,000 patrons and it's like, oh, the numbers were very true and it's just going straight to us.
Yeah, good math.
Yeah, it was weird. But yeah.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm sorry, I'm short. So you have 100,000 YouTube subscribers, you have 6,000 patrons, you have a bunch of Twitch subs and followers and stuff. How do you kind of deal with having such a huge impact on a large number of other people? Because I know a lot of people who say their lives have been changed by Easy Allies or they've really grown because of you guys or something like that. How do you kind of mentally deal with having an effect on a large amount of people?
It's crazy. I think for me, it's weird. Like if I'm sitting on my couch in my garage with my dog, it's weird to kind of get the perspective that like, wow, 200 people are watching this.
Right.
And I think it's just to try to not forget that, like not to dwell on it or think I need to come up with some sort of solve here, but just like always remember like this could have an impact. Somebody would remember that we brought up Dave & Buster's. Like like these things, like they will not forget these things. That like it's not just today. It's all of the days leading up to that. I think that's one of the reasons why love and respect is such a great mantra, because it always keeps us loyal to our fans. It always tries to keep things positive, and so that we don't look back and we can regret business decisions, but never regret what I said to a fan or some way that I presented myself that was not.
Well, and good. Like there are hundreds of negative comments, but then you get one comment where it was like, hey, I was in a really dark place, and you guys really helped me through that, and like. I'm gonna ride that the rest of my life. Like, if we helped one person, everything is worth it. And it's like that we've gotten a few of those, multiple.
But it's funny when we go to events and there's just this like cycle of just like, hey, a fan comes up and like, hey, I just want to say I really appreciate what you guys do, and I'm like, yeah, but you give me $20 a month, so I really appreciate what you do. And it's like, no, it's all about you. Like, no, it's all about, and it just like never stops.
It's all about everybody.
I'm hoping that could just like equalize at some point, and we like see each other, and we're like, we're both pretty cool. Like, all right.
Solaire.
Yes.
So a common problem I found with some video creators who switch to streaming-based stuff is that the quality can tend to decline because they can carry the audience more based off their personalities. Luckily, I do not think that's the case with Easy Allies. But in maintaining your standards, do you find that you've had to set any kind of rules or boundaries on streams like, no, Huber, you can't stream yourself eating hamburger this week?
Not yet. I don't think.
Again, it kind of goes back in with what I was saying to you, I think, where we got really lucky that the 9 of us are generally kind of mild-mannered, polite people, I guess, in general. We did have a little chat about profuse swearing. We've mentioned that, where it's just like, we don't need to do that. Like, why, But really, we haven't really had to deal with that with ourselves. Because, I find that content a little irksome as well. And I think our general base is a little older than a lot of YouTube stuff. And that helps, too. We can be more like human beings.
In terms of like production quality, I'll just make fun of the person who has a bad-looking stream.
Right.
That's all. Like that's the height of it. We'll never be.
Kyle
like,
has no filter. Yeah,
improve your streams, make a better transition, and make your audio better. Like I won't do that to anybody, but I will make fun of them for it. Absolutely.
If we miss questions, we're gonna be at the Twitch booth from 2:30 to 4 today. We'll be like mannequins at a Macy's window, just like sitting at little podiums. So you can come by and ask us stuff, or we're gonna hang out in the back there just for like 5 minutes. But thank you so much for coming to our panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being fans. Enjoy PAX, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.